Hey guys, good evening. Right. Today we are going to start our element 10, which is about fire safety. So in this session, we are going to discuss about what is fire, what are the sources of oxygen, fuel, and heat. What do you mean by a fire triangle, and how can the fire start spreading from one place to one another place? Spread. How does the fire spread? And then we are going to discuss about different types of fire, or you can say how the fires can start in a building, or reasons for electrical fires. And then we'll be discussing about what are the consequences if a fire starts in a workplace, and then we'll discuss about the precautionary measures, then fire detection, fire fighting, and fire evacuation procedures. So before that, if you have any questions, please you can ask me, so that we can start this element 10. Nothing?
No, sir.
Yeah, right. So then we'll start our element 10, which is about fire.
So the next element that we are going to start is element 10, which is about fire safety. So this is the data collected from the National Crime Records Bureau, and these are the fire accidents that only happened in India, and not every fire accident is here. I have only selected, or I have only found some of it, only 10% of all the fire accidents that happened, and that happened only in India. If you can see, on December 8th, 2019, 43 people were killed in a gruesome fire accident in Delhi. 23 students killed in a Takshashila complex in Surat coaching center fire accident on May 2019. In February 2019, there was a massive fire on the 5th floor of Arpit Palace, Karol Bagh, which killed 17 people. 50 cars were gutted in Aero Show fire, and a similar incident in Chennai on February 23rd and 24th, 2019. According to the sources, the fire started from dry grass and spread rapidly due to strong winds. 13 workers died in a chemical explosion at Mumbai in August 13, 2019. 5 killed in Pune cloth godown fire in May 2019. 5 killed in Dibrugarh house fire 2019. The fire was triggered by a burning candle. 43 were killed in a massive factory fire in Delhi in August 2020, last year. Many of the victims died of suffocation and smoke inhalation in the building that had no ventilation. So 9 people died in a cloth godown fire accident in Delhi in December 2019. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have taken only 9 incidents that happened in India out of so many that were available. And if you calculate the number of casualties or the deaths, it will be close to 153. So 9 fire accidents, 153 people got killed, 50 cars got gutted, environmental pollution, reputation damage, and even the stock damage or product damage because of this fire accidents. So whenever fire starts in a workplace, it will have severe consequences. So we will see what are the hazards associated with fire, and we will see what precautions can we take. So the first topic of our 10.1 is fire principles. So let us first discuss about what do you mean by fire. So fire is nothing but a product. Fire is a product of a chemical reaction. Chemical reaction which is known as combustion. Fire is a product of a chemical reaction known as combustion. which happens when oxygen, heat and fuel combine. So if you take the definition in reverse also, when oxygen, fuel and heat combine, there is a chain reaction known as combustion, which releases a product that is known as fire. So that is a proper definition for fire. So fire is a byproduct of a chemical reaction known as combustion when oxygen, heat and fuel combine. So after looking at this definition, we can get two important points to be noted. One is, a fire can only start if oxygen, heat and fuel are present. Means to start a fire, definitely there should be oxygen, fuel and heat. Means if any one of the item is missing, the fire will not start. Or we can prevent fire accident by maintaining a safe distance from the oxygen sources, heat sources and fuel sources. So there are two main things that we'll come to know after going through this definition. So there are three elements which are compulsory if you want to start a fire: oxygen, heat and fuel. To start a fire, these three elements are compulsory. And if you want to stop a fire, remove any one of the item or the element, the fire will stop. So these are the two main things that you can understand from this definition. Now, what are these three called? What is oxygen, heat and fuel? So these three are called as the key elements of fire triangle. So these are called as the key elements of fire triangle. So now let us see once again. Oxygen, fuel and heat. So these are called the key elements of fire triangle. So if you want to start a fire, these three are compulsory, and if you want to stop a fire, remove any one of the item, the fire will stop. Now, what are the sources of oxygen? What are the sources of heat? What are the sources of fuel? The oxygen sources means where can we find the oxygen? So oxygen is present in the environment, oxygen is present in the ventilation systems, oxygen is present in the compressed oxygen cylinders, and some chemicals, they are known as oxidizing agents. So all these are the sources of oxygen. Now what are the sources of heat? Smoking, mechanical heat, metal grinding works, metal cutting works, hot work, welding activities, open burners, radiation, electrical sparks, short circuits. So all these are the sources of heat. What are the sources of fuel? So there are different types of fuel such as petrol, diesel, kerosene, LPG, CNG, wood, cardboard, paper. So all these are the different sources of fuel. The sources of oxygen, heat and fuel are also called as fire hazards. Means if there is fuel source, if there is any heat, if there is any oxygen, then definitely that will start a fire in the workplace. So that is the reason why they are called as the fire hazards. So let us see what are the sources of heat, fuel and oxygen in detail. So sources of oxygen: oxygen which is present in the environment, oxygen present in the air, compressed oxygen cylinders, ventilation systems, and some chemicals called as oxidizing agents. So all these are the sources of oxygen. Now sources of heat or ignition: naked flames from the boilers or smoking, sparks from the static electricity, hot surfaces from grinding, welding and cutting activities, sparks from metal grinding, sparks from electrical equipment, heat from heaters due to the poorly maintained electrical equipment or any kind of equipment which is not properly maintained, which gets heated up resulting in ignition, hot surfaces from overloaded or overheated electrical equipment. Apart from that, radiation from the sun or radiation from the equipment is also a source of ignition. Now, sources of fuel. As we discussed, there are different sources of fuel. There are kerosene, petrol, diesel, paint, thinner, wood, charcoal, plastic, aluminium, sodium, magnesium, kitchen fires. There are many fuels or different types of fuels that are available. Now these fuels are categorized on different groups: solid fuel, liquid, gases, metals, and cooking oils. So solid fuel such as wood, cotton, charcoal, plastic, rubber, solid state. Liquid such as alcohol, petrol, diesel, paint, thinner, all this comes under liquid. Gases, LPG, CNG, methane, butane, propane, all this comes under gases. Metals, aluminium, magnesium, sodium, platinum, copper, all these comes under metal fuels. Cooking oils, animal fats, vegetable oils, or vanaspati, the dalda, all these fall under this category. So these are the different types of fuel or sources of fuel. Now you know fire has a classification. Fire has a classification. If you have seen, you might have seen A, B, C, D, F or K. Whenever you are using a fire extinguisher, you might have seen something like A, B, C, D, F or K. Now this is nothing but the classification of fire. A in the sense, if the fuel is solid, the fire is classified as A. If the fuel is liquid, classification B. If the fuel is gas, classification C. If the fuel is metal, classification D. If the fuel is due to the cooking oils, it is F or K. So based on the fuel, the fire is classified. So let us see in detail about the sources of fuel. Fuel or classification of fuel. Solids class A, liquids class B, gases class C, metals class D, kitchen fires F or K. Wood, paper, cotton, coal, cardboard, plastic, rubber. Solids. Liquids: petrol, diesel, kerosene, alcohol, thinner, solvent, sanitizer, spirit. Liquids: gases, metals and kitchen fires. So this is how the fire is classified based on the fuel. Now, as you know, once the fire starts in a workplace, it won't stay at one place. It starts spreading from one place to another place, burning anything that comes into its path. Now let us look how does the fire spread from one place to the other place. So generally the fire starts spreading from 4 different ways. They are convection, conduction, radiation and direct burning. So let us see how convection happens. Let us suppose if in a building a fire started. Now what happens is, the cold air, a normal air is pulled into the fire and then it turns hot and raises into the upper atmosphere in the form of hot air. So cold air is pulled into the fire and releases into the environment in the form of hot air. And if there is any combustible material, the fire starts igniting that area as well. So the way in which the fire spreads with the help of hot air raising up, that is called as convection. Cold air pulled into the fire and raising up into the environment in the help of hot air and igniting the upper atmosphere, that is convection. See, fire, cold air pulled into the fire, heats up and releases into the upper environment. If there is any flammable material, it will start there as well. So that is convection. And the other way is conduction. Conduction is nothing but mainly through the atoms. So if you are taking an iron rod and if you are heating it from one end, what happens? The heat gets transmitted from this area to this area. Slowly the iron rods get heated up completely. So this way of fire spread is nothing but conduction. So mainly in the buildings where there are metal pipelines connected, if a fire started in this apartment, so the metal pipeline here gets heated up and the heat gets transmitted to the top as well as the bottom, starting the fire in the below apartments or in the above flats. So that kind of fire spread is conduction. See, you start heating up a metal, heat gets transmitted from this end to this end. So that spread is conduction. And the other one is radiation. The spreading of fire with the help of hot waves or heat waves radiates through thermal energy or heat waves. You know how the fires start in the forest, wildfires. So radiation from the sun. So how the wildfires start in the forest? So the sun rays fall onto the dry vegetation or dry plantation and there is sufficient amount of oxygen available. So heat, fuel and oxygen. That is how the fire starts spreading in that area. So that kind of fire spread with the help of thermal energy or heat waves, that is called as radiation. And the most common method where the fire starts spreading is when you start loading the boxes one on the other, mainly in the storage areas or the buildings where the carton boxes are stored one on the other. If a fire starts lighting up the box here, so due to the direct contact with the other boxes, all the above boxes will also start burning. So that type of fire spread is known as direct burning. So boxes loaded, fire starts with one box, it will complete the burn all the boxes which are in the workplace. So this is how the fire starts spreading from one place to another place. So these are the four ways through which the fire can start spreading. One is convection, conduction, radiation and direct burning. So now let us discuss about what are the common causes of fires in the workplace. So when we are discussing about common causes of fire in the workplace, we will be discussing about both accidental fires and also deliberate ignition, means wantedly starting a fire. So there are two types of fires that might be started in the workplace: accidental fires and deliberate ignition, or you can call it as common causes of fire. So accidental fires, unfortunately a fire might start in the workplace. Some of the reasons of the accidental fires are using faulty electrical equipment or overloading the electrical sockets, or because of poor inspection and maintenance of the equipment, which might lead to overheating, or carrying out hot work activities such as welding activities, due to which a fire might start, or because of radiation, or because of grinding activities. When we grind metals or anything, there are sparks which come out. So these sparks might ignite a flammable substance and a fire might start, or because of the burners or gas burners which were left unattended, even that might lead to a fire accident in the workplace or a fire in the workplace. So accidentally, as we already discussed about the accidents in our fourth element, that unfortunate events or unplanned events. So if the fire starts unfortunately or by undesiredly, means nobody wantedly does it, such kind of fires are called as accidental fires. For example, usage of electrical equipment while carrying out hot work activities, or because of smoking, somebody smoked and threw a cigarette butt in an area where there might be a flammable substance. So that is even an accidental fire, because nobody throws a cigarette butt wantedly to start a fire in the organization. So accidentally. Cooking appliances unattended, unsafe usage and storage of flammable substances, mechanical heat, chemical reactions such as sodium coming into contact with water can start a fire accidentally. Presence of flammable and combustible materials near any activity which might be releasing any sparks, even that will also lead to fire accidents. Simple human error, general negligence, horseplay. Horseplay is nothing but playing. Playing some pranks. You might have seen many birthday videos where the person who is celebrating a birthday, the birthday gone wrong. Horseplay means playing some pranks in the birthday parties or in some kind of events, even that might start a fire accidents in the workplace. So all these are accidental fires because nobody plans it. Unfortunately, something might go wrong which might ignite something in the workplace, that is accidental fires. Deliberate ignition. Deliberate means wantedly. Ignition, starting the heat or fire. So that is called as deliberate ignition. Planned, wantedly lighting up something to burn somebody's property or to damage somebody's property. So such kind of fires are called as deliberate ignition or arson. Wantedly starting a fire in the workplace with the intention of damaging somebody's property or to burn something of the other parties. So these are all the common causes of fire in the workplace. Now once a fire starts in the workplace, definitely what happens is there are worst consequences. There might be fatal injuries, there might be death due to suffocation of toxic gases released because of the combustion, or the structures get collapsed, the structures fall. Why? Because the buildings and the pillars, you have metals, or you might be having many materials such as insulating materials such as paint or the cardboards or the asbestos sheets or the fiber sheets. All these are combustible materials. So what happens when the fire starts, the structures get deteriorated, means the structures get weak, because of which the structures might collapse. So if there are any people, they might get buried under the collapsed structures. Even that is the reason for deaths in the workplaces in a fire accident. Very few people die because of burns. Majority of the deaths mainly happen due to breathing toxic gases. So death is likely possible. Then damage to the environment, damage to the stock, damage to the property, all these are the other losses. Apart from that, loss of life or loss of jobs, loss of healthy income, loss of reputation. So all these are the consequences of a fire accident. Consequences: people get killed and injured. So majority of the people are killed in a fire accident due to suffocation and inhaling toxic gases and structural collapse, and very few people might die because of burning. If they are trapped, if there are no proper fire exits, they don't have any place to escape. In that case, very few people die because of burning. Apart from the damage to buildings and contents, including smoke damage, environmental damage, water runoff, lot of wastage of water for putting off a fire, smoke releasing into the environment can damage the environment, you cannot breathe properly. So all these are the consequences of a fire if it starts in a workplace. Now, obviously, fire is a hazard. Why? Because it can cause us harm. So definitely it is the responsibility of the management to carry out a fire risk assessment and to implement precautions. So first of all, the fires can be prevented in the workplace. Our main motto is to prevent a fire, not to extinguish it. Prevention is always better than cure. So instead of finding a cure, first of all, try to prevent fires in the workplace. So now let us see how a risk assessment has to be carried out and what precautions can be taken to reduce the risk of fires in the workplace or to prevent fires in the workplace. As you already know, risk assessment steps. So when you are carrying a risk assessment with respect to fire, the risk assessment steps are: identify the fire hazards. What are the fire hazards? Sources of oxygen, sources of fuel, and sources of heat. Identifying the fire hazards, and because of these fire hazards, who will be harmed? That is the second step. Identifying the people who will be harmed and how they will be harmed. Then evaluating the risks. What is the risk level, high, medium or low? What are the present controls? Are they enough or any additional controls are required? Then recording your findings and then reviewing your risk assessment. Recording your findings and implementing the controls, review your risk assessments and carry out fire safety training as well as mock drills to be conducted. So all these are the steps of fire risk assessment. So now let us see what are the controls that can be taken to prevent fire and fire spread in the workplace. So fires can be prevented in many ways, such as eliminating, while you are implementing the control measures, you need to think about hierarchy of risk control. The best option is eliminate the fire hazards, eliminate the sources of oxygen, eliminate the fuel sources, eliminate the ignition sources. Stop carrying out hot work activities, stop doing welding activities, stop doing metal grinding works, metal cutting works, stop using burners or gas stoves. But is it always possible? No, it is not always possible. So stop using flammable substances. Stop using petrol, diesel, kerosene, paint, solvent. Elimination is always not possible. Oxygen, it becomes very difficult because oxygen is present in the environment, or oxygen might be present in the compressed oxygen cylinders. So for example, in a hospital, you can find easily the compressed oxygen cylinders. Is it possible at the hospitals to eliminate the oxygen cylinders? So elimination is not always possible. Then what should I do? Control the oxygen sources, control the ignition sources, and control the fuel sources. How can I control the sources? For example, if there are compressed oxygen cylinders, make sure these oxygen cylinders are used or operated only by competent people, and these are stored in a designated area, properly enclosed, kept away from the flammable substances and locked off so that no unauthorized people can enter it, and always reduce the quantity to the minimum. Because let us suppose you need 10 oxygen cylinders. Now what we do, we buy in bulk. So now 10 will be used, but the bulk quantity will definitely be a hazard for fire in the workplace. So always reduce the quantity that has to be purchased. And apart from that, make sure there is a register maintained. Means when these oxygen cylinders will be used, who will be using it, at what time they have taken it, has it been returned to the enclosed area or not, that should be recorded. And whenever you are storing the oxygen cylinders, store empty cylinders and filled cylinders separately, so that you have a clear idea which one are empty and which one are filled cylinders. So this is how you can control the oxygen sources. Now controlling the fuel sources, again reduce the quantity of flammable substances that is needed. Same, if you need 10 liters of petrol, so only buy 10 liters. If you buy 100 liters, this 10 liters will be used, but the remaining 90 liters is a potential fire hazard. If in case you need to always have enough quantities for your organization to be used, in that case again storage in designated areas, away from any heat sources. Make sure when you are storing the flammable substances, there is not intrinsic lighting, means flame proof lighting should also be installed, proper signboard should be there, and fencing the area or barricading the area with locks. And make sure near the storage of petrol or flammable substances, make sure there are fire extinguishers available. Only allow competent people to use. Storing separate cylinders, means empty containers separately and filled containers separately. So that is how you can control the fuel sources, both solid, liquid, gases, metals or kitchen fires. Or you can say, instead of using highly flammable substances, use low flammable substances. That will also reduce the risk. That is how controlling the fuel. If controlling the heat sources, controlling the heat sources. So controls on heat sources in the sense, having a formal permit to work and make sure all the controls are implemented. Don't leave the gas burners unattended, and make sure there is a proper controlling system so that as soon as you switch it on, the flame does not go high. So make sure you are controlling with some valves, or the cylinders that we use, the stuffs that we use, there is a control or a valve where you can switch it on and you can raise it into a high flame, or put it into a low flame. So put some controls on it, and controls on metal grinding work, never overloading the electrical sockets. Make sure that the inspection and maintenance is carried out for all the electrical equipment. Ensure there is no negligence. Provide information, instruction and training to all the workers on how to handle the electrical equipment, using the equipment in the right environmental conditions, right? Make sure that all the cabling is done properly. Any equipment which produces sparks should be immediately replaced or repaired. And one more important thing, housekeeping. Proper housekeeping can prevent fire accidents. Cleaning up the dustbins and throwing the waste away from the building, means not inside the building. Why? Because what happens is, most of the organizations, the housekeeping staff, what they do is, daily they want to go and throw it out. It might be very difficult for them. So what they do, all this scrap or the waste or the dustbins, they load it in a proper box and keep it in a isolated area. Generally the isolated areas are only fire exits. Why? Because they are never used. So what they do, they will pile up this waste near the fire exits. In case if a fire accident happens, the fire exit is blocked. We cannot escape. So it will prevent fire accidents. If housekeeping is good, it prevents fire accidents. If it is not good, it might be a barrier between you and your evacuation point. So proper housekeeping, keeping the always corridors neat and clean, throwing the waste out of the building every time. Particularly if there are any flammable liquids, they should be marked as flammable or hazardous and should be thrown away out of it, or go for a safe disposal of it. So that is how you can control or you can prevent fire accidents in the workplace. Let us see. Elimination, or at least reduce the quantities. Control the ignition sources, including electrical equipment and flammable atmospheres, using safe systems of work and good housekeeping. All these measures can be taken to prevent fire accidents in the workplace. When you know oxygen, fuel and heat, if they combine together, there might be fire. So make sure there is a safe distance between all these three things. Never allow these things to come into contact with each other. Why? Because fire will start. So controlling ignition sources, oxygen sources and fuel sources, that will definitely prevent fires from starting in the workplaces. And apart from that, the building itself plays an important role. Either it can stop the spreading of the fire, or if the building is not properly planned, it can allow the fire to spread rapidly. Let us say the structure of the building. Let us suppose there are two buildings, and one building there is no compartmentalization, means there are no cabins or no working platforms. If this is the case, if a fire starts in an area, there is no barrier for it to stop. So the fire will start spreading rapidly throughout the area. So this will definitely allow the fire to spread in a rapid way. The next method is, if there is no compartmentalization, this could happen. So if you have cabins, separate cabins. In case if a fire starts in this particular location, immediately I can evacuate the area and close this door and reach to the nearest exit and reach to the assembly point. By the time the fire starts spreading here and it burns the door and it escapes, the people all are safe. So compartmentalization is very important. For example, take a train. There are different compartments. If in one compartment the fire starts, immediately you escape to the next compartment, close this door, so that by the time it comes out from here, you can pull the chain, stop the train and you can evacuate. So the more number of compartments, the more slowing down the spreading of the fire. So that can be done. So that is the reason, when you go to commercial complexes and industrial areas, there are more number of compartments. So that can be done. And other building properties that can present a fire hazard, such as the paint, solvent, that can catch a fire, the furniture that can catch a fire, the insulation, the false ceiling that we do, that is also a fiber, that is also a flammable substance, even that can spread the fire rapidly. So what you need to do? So whenever you are using any insulation or painting or something, make sure they are coated with flame proof material so that the fire won't immediately burn them. Even the doors, main doors, or you can say the doors where you enter into your cabins or enter into your office, those doors are called as fire doors. The fire door should also be strong enough, having enough width so that it can prevent a fire for a set period of time. Means, for example, if you are working in a commercial complex such as a shopping mall, or there might be a commercial complex, so the doors of this building, the main entry or exit doors, whatever it might be, these doors should be able to withstand the fire for at least 30 minutes. Means once you close the door and evacuate the area, that door should be having enough strength so that it can hold the fire, or it can prevent the fire from spreading away for at least 30 minutes. For this is for commercial complexes, and you need to clearly label it, that is a fire door. Remember, fire exits are different, fire doors are different. Fire doors are main entrance or exit doors. Fire exits are when you use it only in the evacuation process. So for commercial complexes, these fire doors should be able to withstand a fire for at least 30 minutes. So the approximate width of the door should be at least 34 mm. The thickness of the door should be 34 mm. This is for commercial complexes. So if you are working in an industry, in that case, this fire door should be able to withstand the fire for at least 60 minutes. Mainly in industrial areas or companies, the fire doors should be fitted in such a way that the thickness should be enough that it can withstand the fire for at least 60 minutes. So approximately the thickness is 52 mm to 54 mm. This should be the thickness of the fire door or the main door if it is for industrial areas. So these should be there for every organization. It might be a commercial complex or might be an industry. Apart from that, all the ventilation system should be fitted with automatic closing, door closing shutters. Means if there is any ventilation system, so it should be fitted in such a way that, or automatically, that if the temperature increases, immediately the ventilation system should shut off. And even nowadays what's happening, the window frames, you have the aluminum window frames. So what happens once the construction is done, these window frames are attached and they are fixed. So still there might be a gap between the window frames. That might even supply the oxygen for the fire. So what you need to do, all the gaps in the window frames should be completely sealed off with a fireproof silicone sealant, so that no air will be supplied to the fire, or else it might also spread out of it because of the small seals or small gaps in it. So that is about the building structures. So the door should be able to withstand a fire for 30 minutes or for 60 minutes for companies, and the door should be fitted with a vision panel. Means a glass panel should be fitted to the door, and that glass should be fireproof. That glass should be fireproof, because if it is not fireproof, because of the heat generated by the fire, the glass might break and the fire might escape. So it should be fireproof glass, so that if firefighters come, they can see through this glass what is the exact situation. Based on that, they can plan for the fire fighting or extinguishing the fire. So let us discuss about the fire door properties in detail in the next slide. So this is the fire door. The thickness of the door should be enough so that it can withstand the fire for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Clearly labeled that it is a fire door. And it should be fitted with an automatic shutter. Why? Because when there is a fire accident, let us suppose in case if there is a fire accident, so we might be in a hurry. Our hurry will be like we need to evacuate as soon as possible so that we can save our lives. So sometimes it happens that in a hurry we might forget to close the door. So if the door is not closed, there is a higher chance that the fire might spread rapidly. So that is the reason why it should be fitted with a door closing system, the handle lock, so that we can push it or pull it, and vision panel with a flame proof glass, and even the frame of the door should be fitted with silicon sealant, or it is called as intumescent strips. So these door panels or the doors should be fitted with intumescent strips. Now what does it do? What is the purpose of these strips? When you close the door, there might still be a small gap across the edges of the door. Now as soon as the fire starts up and the temperature gets heated up, these silicon strips will expand by closing this gap between the door and the frame, so that the fire or the smoke will not escape. So these are the basic requirements or the characteristics of a fire door. So fitted with hinges, right? Hinges should be tested as part of door set, and you need to also check whether there is blocked or it is because of rusting in the hinges. Sometimes what might happen, the door might not get open up. So it should be regularly inspected and tested whether it is easily openable and closed or not. So that are the properties or characteristics of a fire door, not fire exit, fire door. I am repeating again. Now other materials of the building, concrete, usually very resistant to fire and does not allow or does not collapse catastrophically. Suddenly it won't collapse. It might spell, means because of huge fire, some chips might fall off, but completely it will not collapse. Steel, severely affected by high temperature. As I said, when you're on the roofs or in the pillars, you have rods, hardware. So what is the problem with this? So when the temperature rapidly increases, metal starts losing its structure. It might start melting or it might start bending, because of which the structures get weak and they collapse. Bricks are generally flame proof. Why? Because they are burnt to the extreme temperatures, very high temperatures in a kiln. They may spall, means they might slowly start dropping some chips of it, but they will definitely not catch fire. Timber, furniture, or you can say the shelves or right. So timber means the furniture or the thin sheets or ploughed sheets or any of the wood material that is used for decorating or furnishing. Those are flammable, so immediately they might catch a fire. So these are the common building materials. Insulation and wall coverings. Insulation, wall insulation, such as painting or whatever the painting that you do, that is a solvent that can be flammable. So whenever you are going for a painting or insulating the walls or anything, make sure you are using flame proof paint. And even when you are going for false ceiling, make sure the material is flame proof. Nowadays in the market there are a lot of materials. They are termite proof, weather proof, heat proof, or even flame proof as well. You can find n number of materials. So use such kind of material for insulating the walls. Wall coverings such as wallpapers. Many people have wallpapers nowadays. So make sure these wallpapers are also flame proof so that we can prevent the spread of a fire. So all these things come under the preventing fires in the workplace. Now, as an employer, you have done the risk assessment, you have implemented all the control measures, you have properly created awareness to all the workers, provided proper training. Can you give us a guarantee that fires will not happen in the workplace? No, there is no guarantee. Why? Because if hazard cannot be eliminated, the risk can only be reduced. Still there is some risk. So there might be some unfortunate situations. Still fire might start. So in that case, the management should have emergency procedures. Now I hope you remember we discussed about these emergency procedures in our element 3. We have seen if there is a fire accident, if there is a flood, if there is any spillage of chemical, if there is any outburst of disease, the procedures should be available in the organization to deal with them effectively. Now let us see what are the arrangements for emergencies caused because of fire. So there are two different types of procedures, or the different procedures for fire evacuation or fire emergency. So these procedures will include how the fire will be detected. How the fire will be detected in case if it starts. Then once detected, how will we raise the alarm? So that awareness or alerting other workers is also very, very important. So once the fire gets detected, how will we raise the alarm so the workers can get alerted and they can go for the evacuation? Now, once the alarm is raised, deciding about fighting with the fire means extinguishing the fire or going for an evacuation. So there should be even measures for firefighting and there should be also measures for evacuation procedures. So now let us see firefighting and emergency evacuation in the workplace. Element 10.3. Fire alarms, firefighting. If firefighting is not possible, fire evacuation. Now fire alarms. What need to be done or what arrangement should be there? So there should be detectors, detection system. There are two types of detectors, smoke detectors and heat detectors. And once they are detected, how to raise the alarm. These procedures should be there. Now, why they should be available? So that the fire can be detected, the alarm can be raised so that all the other workers can be alerted, so that the fire marshals or the fire department can take charge of the situation in fighting the fire or evacuating the people nearby. So that is the purpose of fire alarms and fire detection systems. Why fire detection and alarm systems should be required? So that fire detection and protection system is required for the following reasons. To detect the fire in the initial stage, to alert the occupants so that they can escape the building in a safe way, to ensure trained personnel to take charge of controlling a fire as quick as possible, to initiate automatic fire control or suppression systems such as automatically alerting the sprinkler system so that we can sprinkle the extinguishing media so the fire can stop, to support and supervise fire controls and suppression systems. So these are the reasons why fire detection and fire alarms are needed. Now, how many types of fire detectors are there? There are two types of detectors used. One is smoke detector and the other one is heat detector. Now, smoke detector. So, smoke detector is very sensitive. So that can immediately detect small amounts of smoke as well, which will raise an alarm immediately so that the fire can be detected in its early stages. So they have sensors. They use alpha particles or they'll use electromagnetic radiation. So they can use this. So what they do is they will immediately detect the fire and raise the alarm. So there are two types of fire detectors. One is smoke detector and the other one is heat detector. Smoke detectors are very sensitive. There are two types. One is ionizing radiation one and the other one is optical smoke detectors. The simple thing is they are very sensitive. They can even detect a small amount of smoke and raises the alarm. Early detection is possible and suppressing the fire becomes very easy if it is detected on an early basis. Now disadvantages, they are very sensitive, that might lead to false alarms as well, such as if there is a smoke detector and if there is any wood cutting activity going on, so there might be dust or there might be a grinding activity going on, so there might be smoke rising out of it. So that will also detect it and raise the alarm, which might lead to a false alarm. So that is the only disadvantage of smoke detectors. Detect small smoke particles. Two main types, ionizing and optical, can give rise to false alarms. Heat detector. Heat detectors are of two types. One is rate of rise and the other one is fixed temperature. Detect excess heat generated by a fire. Means this won't detect any smoke. They only detect heat. Usually less sensitive and get later warning. Why? Because for any fire which is starting basically from a small smoke, such kind of fires will not be able to be detected by the heat detectors. Rate of rise in the sense, if a fire starts in a building, slowly the temperature starts rising. So they will detect the variation in the temperature and raise the alarm. One is fixed temperature, means the temperature is fixed in a particular heat detector, and if the temperature of that area reaches to that point, then only they will raise the alarm. So that is the disadvantage. Sometimes what happens, it might give us late alarms. By the time the fire department goes and try to extinguish it, it might be too late. Two types: rate of rise, fixed temperature. May not detect fires that give off smoke, not heat. Let us suppose you are doing an ironing clothes. You forgot your iron box. Now immediately a huge fire will not start. Slowly it starts smoldering. Slowly smoke starts coming. Slowly, without excess heat, it starts burning. So for such kind of fires, they won't work. So these are all the fire detection systems. Now, once the fire is detected, the next thing is raising the alarm. Yeah, one more simplest way to detect a fire is the worker himself seeing the fire and raising the alarm, simply shouting fire, 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 fire to alert the workers. Worker can detect it. If there are areas, if the organization is widespread and there are unoccupied areas where nobody is present, even there might be a fire that might start. So in those areas, the best thing is to use the smoke detectors or the heat detectors. Now the fire gets detected. How to raise the alarm? As I said, simplest thing is shouting fire, fire, fire. Simplest thing is shouting fire, fire, fire. But there might be areas which might be large enough. So simply shouting might not be able to, might not be useful, or the people might not be able to hear it. So in that case, we need a little bit updated system with more noise. The best thing is ringing a handbell so that the noise is more and it can alert more workers. Ringing a handbell. Still you need more advanced version. You can install manual call points. If somebody detects a fire, immediately go to the nearest call point, break the glass, press the button. Immediately the alarm will raise. You want more advanced than this, you have automatic alarm systems which are directly linked to the smoke detectors and heat detectors. So automatic alarm systems. As soon as the smoke or the heat detectors detect the fire or smoke, it will raise the alarm, which are directly connected to the sprinkler system. Alarm raised and also sprinkler system will also get activated so that the fire can be suppressed. So all these are the different types of alarms that can be seen in the workplace. Voice, simplest and most effective type, but very limited because it is dependent upon the size of the workplace and background noise level. Hand operated, rotary gong or handbell or triangle and shoulder sounder, or you can say simply announcing in the mic, that is one. Call points and automatic alarm systems. So all these are the different types of alarms that can be used in the workplace. This is a call point. So break the glass, pull the lever, or break the glass, press the button. That is how the alarm will be raised. Now once the fire is detected, once the alarm is raised, then there are two things: the procedures to deal with extinguishing the fire or the procedures to evacuate the building. So now let us discuss about firefighting equipment, or how can we fight with the fire, or what factors need to be considered that can decide whether should you fight with the fire or should you evacuate the area. So there are different types of firefighting equipment that are available in the market. So based on the requirement of the organization, they can use this equipment. Fire extinguishers, fire hydrant, fire blankets, fire hose and fire buckets. So these are all some of the common firefighting equipment that you can see in the workplace. The most commonly we see is a fire extinguisher, a fire hydrant and a fire hose. Now there are different types of fire extinguishers. So fire extinguishing media means the material or the substance that is present in the fire extinguisher. So there are water based fire extinguishers, there are carbon dioxide based fire extinguishers, there are foam based fire extinguishers, there are dry chemical powder based fire extinguishers and there are wet chemical fire extinguishers. So now how do you recognize whether it is a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher or whether it is a dry chemical powder or whether it is a foam fire extinguisher, wet chemical or water based fire extinguisher? There is a color coding for each and every fire extinguisher based on the extinguishing media that is present inside it. So the most common fire extinguisher that we use is the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher. You know, the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher is with blue color coding. So if you can see here, so dry chemical powder is represented with blue color, whereas water based fire extinguishers you can see a red stripe, for foam extinguishers you can see cream, and for wet chemical you can see yellow. If it is carbon dioxide you can see a black stripe on it. So based on the color combination you can decide or you can see and tell what is the extinguishing media which is present inside the fire extinguisher. So that is the color coding of a fire extinguisher. So water red, DCP blue, foam cream color, carbon dioxide black color and wet chemical in yellow color. So these are the color combinations of or color codings of fire extinguishers. Next, see, water based fire extinguishers can be used on solids. Foam fire extinguishers can be used on solids and liquids. The most commonly used, as I said, the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher, because this can be used on solids, liquids, gases, metals, electrical equipment up to 1000 volts. So these fire extinguishers can be used on electrical equipment up to 1000 volts. But now, before you use a fire extinguishers, there are certain factors that need to be considered where you have to decide, should I go for firefighting or should I go for fire evacuation? Now it is very important to decide which one is the best option for you. Now what factors will you consider that will help you to decide whether should I go ahead and suppress the fire or extinguish the fire or whether I should evacuate? It depends on the fire itself. If the fire is big or huge enough, the best thing is evacuate the area. And when you know what is the fuel that is burning or what is the class of fire, you know, as we discussed in the starting of this element, the classification of fire is based on the fuel. So first of all, if you want to use a fire extinguisher or a fire extinguishing media or equipment, you need to know what is the fuel that is burning. Why? Because without knowing the fuel, you cannot decide what is a suitable fire extinguisher that is need to be used. And you know what is the fuel, then check whether you have a suitable fire extinguisher or not. You can see based on the fuel what is the suitable fire extinguisher. If available, whether it is in good condition, whether it is in good working condition or whether it is expired, that should also be considered. And if it is in good condition, even sufficient quantity is available, because sometimes what might happen, only one fire extinguisher is not enough. So see, I cannot go to a war with only one gun and only having 6 bullets with 20 of the members. Why? Because it will not be enough. If I go with this, the result you already know, I will get killed. Same way, only you have one extinguisher and you are going ahead to deal with a huge fire, you might get burned or you might die in firefighting. So check enough quantities are available. Then make sure you know how to use a fire extinguisher. You have received sufficient training. So sufficient training in the sense, not seeing the YouTube videos or not seeing somebody using a fire extinguisher and deciding, yes, this is simple, I can use it. No, this is not what I mean by training. You should have hands-on experience, means you should have already experienced or you should have already used the fire extinguisher. Then only you can go ahead. By simply doing the YouTube videos or the Facebook videos or videos on Twitter or anywhere, you cannot directly use it. Simple was, if you want to learn driving, you have to physically sit in the car along with your trainer and you have to drive it. By simply watching a YouTube video, okay, first of all I need to put a gear, okay, then keep my leg on the accelerator, and if I drive in this way, what will be the result? You will be danger for yourself as well as you will be killing others also. So you cannot simply learn anything by watching videos. You have to feel it. You have to physically do it. Then only you will be trained. And if there are more number of people that have to be evacuated, so better evacuate them first, then decide about firefighting. Because when there are more lives at stake, you cannot start fighting with the fire, keeping their life at risk. So better evacuate the area. Life is more important than the property or the stock. So these are all the factors that need to be considered when you are deciding whether to fight with the fire or evacuate the area. Now, as I said, fire extinguishers. Now, whenever you are inspecting a fire extinguisher, before you are using a fire extinguisher, there are certain things that need to be checked. So let us see what are those things that need to be considered when you go for a firefighting. I hope you can see a pull pin. This is the pull pin that is available for the fire extinguisher. So before you go for the firefighting, check whether there is a seal or not. Now this is an used extinguisher, so you won't find the seal. So there will be a seal here. So ensure there is a seal and it is not damaged. That should be checked. And ensure that the pull pin itself is not missing. Pull pin should always be there. And check whether the hose is properly sealed. And if you can see, in this clogged nozzle, there is a small needle. I'm not sure whether you are able to see it or not, but there is a small needle on the nozzle. And ensure this needle should always be on the green portion, not on the red portion. If you can see in this, this is on red portion. So this is empty, you cannot use this. And before you use a fire extinguisher, you need not have technical knowledge about it. So all the instructions are provided here itself. You need to also check the expiry date, next refilling date, this one, and check on what class of fire this can be used. If you can see, there is A, B, C. So this extinguisher can be used on class A fires where the fuel is solid, B where it is liquid, C gases, and even that can be used on electrical fires up to 1000 volts. As you see, the dry chemical powder fire extinguishers up to 1000 volts, you can use it. Even the instructions are also given clearly on the product label itself. So you can simply follow these and then use it, provided you have a experience on it. Right. And the fire extinguishers, wherever you are storing these fire extinguishers, that should not be blocked. The fire extinguisher should be easily visible and easily located, and they should not be blocked, and they should be always inspected and maintained to ensure they are in good working condition. So let's discuss about that. And how to use a fire extinguisher? First of all, there is a principle, PASS, pass. So break the seal, break the seal, pull the pin, P, pull the pin, then aim this hose on the base of the fire, not in the air or where the fire is there, mainly on the base, on the source of the fire, and then squeeze this lever and sweep the hose side to side. So this is how you use it. P, ASS, pass. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the lever, sweep side to side. PASS, pass. So that is how you need to use a fire extinguisher. See, pull the pin, aim at the base, not on the flame or the smoke. Squeeze the lever and sweep side to side. So that is how you use a fire extinguisher. Now, in case you are caught up with a fire, your shirt or your clothes are caught up in the fire, so never run, because when you run, the fire will get sufficient amount of oxygen. The fire will intensify, will spread, it will not stop. So best thing is, cover your face, lie down onto the ground and roll horizontally. So this is how you have to do, or this is what you have to do. Why? Because when you roll onto the ground, that will stop the supply of oxygen and the fire will get extinguished. See. Stop. Do not run, do not panic, or do not touch the fire, because you are not the heroes of the movie, we are just the victims of a fire. So definitely you should not try to put off a fire with your hand. Drop to the ground, lie down, keep your legs flat and out, cover your face, roll around. Stay away from fire, escape safely, seek medical help immediately if you get any burn injuries. Stop, drop, roll. SDR. Stop, drop, roll. This is how you have to do, or what you have to do when you come into contact with the fire, or when you are caught up in a fire. Right? So inspection of fire extinguishers. All the things just now we discussed associated with the fire extinguisher. Ensure that the access to the extinguisher is not obstructed by storage bins or file cabinets. Make sure that the extinguisher is mounted in a location where it is easily visible and easily located during an emergency, and make sure signs are posted. Signs are posted, fire extinguisher, arrow marks for fire extinguisher, they should also be available. Check the tamper seal, as I said, in this case tamper seal is not there. Why? Because it is a used extinguisher. Pull pin is not missing. Check the pressure gauge needle should be located in the green portion, not in the red portion. Check the inspection tag and see the last inspection date. Read all the warnings and symbols before using the fire extinguisher. This is about inspection of fire extinguishers. And all the expired fire extinguishers or empty fire extinguishers should be immediately replaced or refilled to ensure they are in good working condition. A blocked fire extinguisher by storage of waste bins. An expired fire extinguisher, it might be more than 10 or 15 years, I guess. This might have been installed in the organization around 10 or 15 years back. Now definitely you cannot use this. This should not be the condition of the fire extinguishers. Visibility and brackets, right? As I said, it should be easily located and easily accessible. And the color of the fire extinguisher should be only red. You cannot paste it to some other color which you like. Only red extinguishers. Brackets, wall mounting brackets. If you want brackets should be properly installed onto the wall so that the fire extinguishers can be fixed properly. Then mounting the fire extinguishers. If the fire extinguisher is less than 4 kgs, the fire extinguisher is less than 4 kgs, then it should be mounted at 1.5 meters above the floor level. If the fire extinguishers are more than 4 kgs, 1 meter from the floor. It is important that extinguishers are securely mounted onto the walls. Why? Because if you are not mounting the extinguishers onto the walls properly, that might fall, resulting in injuries to the pedestrians. Mounting the fire extinguishers is very, very important. Now, this is the maximum distances for the fire extinguishers to be available based on the classification of fire. So if it is a solid fuel, the maximum traveling distance should be 30 meters, not more than that. If it is class B fire extinguisher, the maximum distance where a fire extinguisher should be available is 10 meters. Class C, 30 meters. For metals, you have to seek experts' advice. For kitchen fires or cooking oils, it should be available in 10 meters. The maximum means maximum distance, not more than that. So these are the traveling distances to the nearest fire extinguishers based on the classification of fire. And apart from that, different arrangements are needed, such as a firefighting lift. In case of a fire starts, the lift should be used only by the firefighters. That is the reason why we call it as firefighting lift. Only the firefighters can use it. And fire staircases means where the staircases can be used by the fire officers to put off a fire, or lobbies, firefighting lobbies. So let us see them as well. So access to building or firefighting personnel. Firefighting lift, firefighting stairs, and a firefighting lobby. Firefighting lobby is nothing but, for example, if a firefighter is using a lift and is coming into an area, or using a staircase and coming into the building. So this area is called as a firefighting lobby. See, a protected lobby that provides access from a firefighting stair to the accommodation area and associated with firefighting lift. So these should also be available, and specific requirements depend on the size and design of the organization. See, if you want how many extinguishers are needed, how many assembly points are needed, how many blankets are needed, how many firefighting lifts are needed, those requirements are different for different organizations. Some organizations might be small, some organizations might do activities where there might be very rare cases that fires will start. Some organizations might be very large enough where more number of people are working and there are more potential fire hazards. So depending on the nature of the organization, depending on the spread of the organization, depending on the activities that the organization do, depending on the number of people, the requirements might be different. In some organizations, more than one firefighting lift is needed. In some organizations, more than 50 fire extinguishers are needed. More than more fire exits are needed. So that will be decided based on the size of the organization, what activities it is carrying out, and what is the spread of the organization. Right? So those factors will decide about the firefighting equipment required for that particular organization or the company. Next, where firefighting cannot be done when you are to think about fire evacuation. Even fire evacuation procedure should also be in place. So there should be also arrangements by the management so that fire evacuation happens without any hassle. Now, what are the arrangements for fire evacuation? So all the necessary arrangements are availability of fire exits. So these fire exits should always be available so that the workers can use these fire exits to evacuate the area and reach to the nearest assembly point. Now, what are the general requirements of fire exits? That should be having enough width so that a fully grown person can easily move, and the doors should be opening in the direction of travel, means push and get out. So when I am going to the fire exit, and it should be like push the fire exit, evacuate, not pulling inside. Why? Because pulling inside, we are going back, that can create a stampede in the event of a fire. So always it should be push and open. Then more exits are needed, more than one exit is needed. In case only one exit is there and that is also blocked, means the workers will be blocked inside the building, risk increases. So there should be multiple exits in the organization, so that if one exit is blocked, people can go to the other exit or other exit. And signs should be posted, arrow marks should be given where is the nearest fire exit, that should be there. And even emergency lighting should also focus on the signboards as well on the top of the fire exits as well. And if suppose if I am using a fire exit and coming out of the building, it should directly take me to the nearest assembly point. So directly, if you are using a fire exit, it should directly take you to the assembly point or the safest place. It is not like using a fire exit, going to a next chamber, from there using an exit, and again they are going for another chamber, and then you go to the assembly point. No in between deviation routes. Directly fire exit should take you to the nearest safest point, that is assembly point. So these are all the main characteristics of fire exits, or how the fire exits should be. No use of lifts, obviously. You cannot use lifts in the case of fire accidents. Only use staircases or ramps. Take staff to a place of safety. More than one exit might be required. Traveling distance should be as short as possible. Adequate width, clearly signed, proper lighting, emergency lighting, and no obstructions. Fire exits should not be blocked by waste or any kind of boxes. All these are the general requirements of fire exits. For low risk areas and low number of workers, for every 45 meters there should be a fire exit. Low risk, low number of workers, every 45 meters there should be a fire exit. High risk area, high number of workers, for every 25 meters there should be a fire exit. So the people can reach nearest fire exit and evacuate the area within minutes or as soon as possible. Low risk, low number, one exit up to 45 meters. High risk, high number, several exits less than 25 meters distance. Then staircases and corridors, fireproof, should not be obstructed. Emergency lighting should be there, and fire staircases are there. If exit staircases are there, that should also take you directly to the emergency or assembly point. Ramps should also be there. Why? Because if there are any vulnerable people such as pregnant women or disabled persons, there you can use wheelchairs to shift them to the assembly point with the help of wheelchairs or stretchers. Doors, fire doors or fire exit doors should be easy to open, adequate width, opening in the direction of travel, and they should not be locked. All these are the basic requirements of stairs, ramps and doors. Emergency lighting, as I said, at night or where there is no natural lighting, particularly to indicate the escape routes, regular maintenance, routine inspection of emergency lighting, whether it is working properly or not, and replacing them immediately. So that is how you have to do it. Fire exit and fire door signs, already we discussed this. Assembly point. Safe distance from the building. For example, if this is a building, this is the entrance, so generally safest place you can have a fire assembly point. Sighted and safe position, not sighted to obstruct the fire brigade. Means if the assembly point is here, this is the main door or the main entrance, the fire assembly or fire department might not enter it. So it should not obstruct the fire brigade. It should be sighted separately and not obstructing the fire brigade. Must be walkable distance. Means, for example, as in the building there is a fire, we reach to the nearest assembly point. And if there is a chance the fire can spread rapidly and it can reach to the nearest assembly point, then further escape route should also be possible. See, must be able to walk away from assembly point back to public road if the fire intensifies or spreads more rapidly. Clearly signed, this is the signboard. Sufficient quantities. Why? Because an organization is spread across 10 or 20 acres, and if there is only one assembly point, is it possible that everybody can reach to the assembly point in the quickest time? No. So that is the reason why you need to have multiple assembly points so that the people can go to their nearest escape area or safe area. If there are multiple assembly points, training and information provided to all the workers, means in case of a fire, where these people have to go. For example, in this area, the worker's nearest point is this. If in confusion he goes here, when he takes the attendance here, roll call is taken, this guy is missing. So I might send a safety officer inside. So I am putting a safety officer's life at risk because of a worker's mistake. So clear information and training should be provided to each and every worker on what is their designated assembly point. That should be considered. And communication, as I said, communication and information should be provided about the escape routes and which assembly point the workers need to go in case if there is an emergency. All these arrangements for fire exits, doors, windows, staircases should be available, and even for assembly points. Emphasis should be mainly given on sounding the alarm, getting out of the building and stay out of the building. So we'll discuss about the evacuation procedures in our coming slide. So how the evacuation procedure happens, or what is the role of fire marshal or a fire officer in case if there is a fire accident. What is the role of fire marshal in case if there is a fire accident? First, his responsibility is to check whether the fire alarm is real or not. Checking all the fire extinguishers are working properly, fire exits are not blocked. Evacuating means helping in the evacuation of vulnerable people and taking charge of that particular evacuation process and even taking roll call, attendance. Once we evacuate the building and come against near the assembly point, he will check whether everybody has safely evacuated or not. All these are the roles of fire marshals in the workplace. Check if the alarm is real, check all the areas are evacuated, assisting in the disabled workers or vulnerable people, ensure fire escape routes are kept clear, ensure windows and doors are closed, conduct roll call at assembly point, and even calling the fire brigade can be one of his responsibilities. So these are the roles of fire marshals in case if a fire starts in the workplace. So in the event of fire evacuation, special consideration should be given for vulnerable people. Even special equipment might be needed, such as stretchers or wheelchairs, so that they can be evacuated. So let us discuss about that. Special wheelchairs for evacuating the vulnerable people, stretchers or arrangements of special evacuation equipment for vulnerable group. So these arrangements should be available if there are any special cases. Now let us discuss about the evacuation procedure. So as soon as the fire is detected, as soon as the alarm is raised, what you need to do? So as soon as the alarm is raised, the main power supply goes off, main power supply gets shut down, and emergency lighting switches on or comes into action. And this emergency lighting will mainly focus on the fire exit signs, fire extinguishers, or even fire exits. Now once the power supply goes on, if we are working in a cabin, if we are working in a room, as soon as alarm goes off, we need to shut down all the electrical equipment and get out of your cabins. We need to come out of your cabins. And while coming out of the cabin, if I am the last person, we need to make sure all the windows and all the doors are closed. All the doors and windows are closed. Remember, closing. Do not lock it. Don't lock the doors. Why? Because when we evacuate the area, the fire brigade might come inside. If there is a lock, they will not be able to go inside and extinguish the fire. Only close it and do not lock it. And immediately try to come out of your cabins. Do not search for your belongings such as wallets, laptops, shoes, tiffin box, or posting it on the Facebook. These all can be done at a later stage. Immediately come out of your cabin, close the door, and follow the fire exit signs and reach to the nearest fire exit. Don't use main doors, don't use the windows, or don't use the lifts when you are going for fire evacuation. only use fire exits and come to the nearest assembly point. And while you are evacuating, if possible, you can assist the vulnerable group as well if you can. Otherwise, leave it to the trained people or the fire marshals or the designated persons. And once you come to the assembly point, there will be a roll call taken, means attendance based on the register, and checked everybody has safely evacuated the area or not. Then calling the fire brigade, and they will come, they will extinguish the fire and they will go. And then your fire marshal will go inside and check whether the area is safe, and once he thinks it is safe, he will give you a signal, then only you can enter inside. So this is how the evacuation goes on. And fire evacuation is practically possible for companies or for the industries, but there are certain areas where fire evacuation or taking a roll call might not be practically possible, such as you are working or you are in a commercial complex, such as a shopping complex, such as an Inorbit Mall in Hyderabad or Lulu Mall or Big Bazaar or any of these malls. Can you keep the count or can you keep the details of the customers who are entering into the mall? We cannot. So that is the reason why sometimes roll calls or fire evacuation procedure is good, but taking roll call is not practically possible. So what can we do? We need to make sure in that cases on each and every floor there is a fire plan. Each and every floor there should be a fire plan for that building or in that particular floor, so that the workers or the customers can see where is the nearest fire exit and use it to evacuate the building. So that should be there. And it is a responsibility of the employer to conduct mock drills or fire drills once in every year to test the trainings provided to the workers. What is the benefit? What is the benefit of testing your procedures or doing the mock drills? You will know that whether the workers have understood whatever information we have provided. If not, at least we will know what are the loopholes, what are the limitations of the evacuation procedure, and we can try to find a practical solution which can be improved next time. So recording, training and testing your procedures is more important, right? So this is the fire evacuation plan for a building. This is just an example. Assembly point, fire exit, fire exit, fire exit, fire exit, fire exit. Manual call points, call point for alarms. There is a fire extinguisher as well as a fire hose here. There is a fire extinguisher. This is a geography room based on that particular building. Fire alarm or fire call point. Water closets, washrooms. This is for disabled workers, this is for normal workers. So this is the proper plan for the fire evacuation for the building. So this plan should be available for the buildings. If there are multiple floors, so for each and every floor, this plan should be available. You can see fire main plan, fire extinguisher, fire blanket, fire hose, fire exit doors, fire exit route map. So these all should be available for each and every building, right? So with this we complete our element 10, which is fire safety.
Okay, so that was about our element 10, which is about hazards and precautions associated with fire. So, yeah. Any questions that you want to ask?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, can you please explain evacuation plan once again?
Yeah. See, the simplest evacuation plan is as soon as the alarm raises, all the workers should reach to the nearest fire exit and reach to the nearest assembly point. That is the simplest plan. So if you want to go in a little bit detail, what you have to do, just give me a minute. There is some disturbance, right? So as soon as the alarm raises, the first thing is to shut down all the electrical supply. The main power supply should go off. You should completely shut it down. And then as soon as the main power supply goes off, the emergency lighting will come into action. And this emergency lighting is mainly focused on the fire exit signages as well as the nearest firefighting equipment. Okay, near to the fire exits as well as firefighting equipment. As soon as the main power supply goes off, emergency lighting comes into action. And if we are the people who are working in a cabin, so what is our duty? To shut down all the electrical equipment. Shut down all the electrical equipment and come outside. And if anybody is coming out of that particular cabin in the last, you need to make sure all the doors and windows are closed. Doors and windows are closed. Remember, closing, not locking.
Yes, sir. Why? Because to avoid the entrance of air, oxygen.
Yeah, not only that, why we should lock the doors? Because if we lock them, the fire cannot come in, or by the time the fire burns the doors and comes outside, we can evacuate that particular area. So that is the reason why we need to only close the doors. Why do not lock it? Why? Because if you are locking it, when the firefighters come and try to put off a fire, it becomes very difficult. Why? Because the doors are locked.
Right, sir. Right.
So only closing them, not locking them. And once you come out of your cabins, close your doors. What is the next thing that you have to do? You need to look into the nearest fire exit. You should follow the signages, the arrow marks towards the nearest fire exit, and follow the fire exit. Do not shout, do not run, do not panic. Follow in a queue or a line and move towards out of the fire exit. And once you use the fire exit, directly reach on to the assembly point. You should not roam here and there. Building se bahar aa gaya na, okay, I'm safe, I can go anywhere. No, that should not be the case. So every worker should go to the nearest assembly point. And once you go to the assembly point, your supervisor or a fire marshal or the manager, depending on the organization, whoever might be the responsible person, he'll come and take a roll call, means attendance, to check whether everybody has evacuated safely or not. And then they'll call the emergency services such as the fire department, and then they'll come, they'll extinguish the fire and they'll go. And you cannot directly enter the building as soon as the fire department has done their job. Your fire marshal will go inside, check whether everything is really safe, and then he'll allow you to come inside. This is how the fire evacuation procedure should go on. And one more thing, the assembly point should be in an area where it is a safe place, where it can offer you good protection from a fire, and it should not be hindering the fire safety staff or fire marshals or firefighters. It should not be blocking the entrance of a building. It should be near the entrance of a building, but not blocking the route of the firefighters. Why it should be at the entrance of the building? Mainly because if in case if the fire spreads rapidly, at least you have enough time, or you can move to a more safer area exiting the premises as well. Okay, Rajan, please mute your audio. There is a background noise. Right? So that is how you have to go for the evacuation. Right? Now, how will you decide what is the evacuation time? Is there any particular standard or standard, legal standard that everybody should come out of a building within this given time? Aisa kuch hai?
No, sir. Whenever the fire rises, it means there is anything that it is not safe, isn't it?
My question, is there any particular time that within which the workers have to come to the nearest assembly point? Aisa kuch hai?
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir.
है कहाँ पे?
Minimum at least 3 minutes होना चाहिए maximum.
At least
3 minutes.
3 minutes. ठीक है. Now let us say, who is this? 3 minutes किसने बताया?
Saurabh, sir.
Saurav, chalo. Now, Saurav, you are working on a high-rise building, 25 floors, 30 floors, let us say. A fire accident happened and you are on the roof, 30th floor. Pe ho. Can you use lift?
No, sir. Not easy lift.
Now, if
Use
you
a
start,
staircase.
yeah. Now, if you start from the 25th floor, reach to the assembly point, do you think is it possible within 3 minutes?
No, sir.
आपने तो बताया 3 minutes. So there is no particular standard key, this guy should come or the people should come to the assembly point within this dedicated time frame. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं. But हाँ, depending on many factors such as what is the spread of the organization, how many assembly points are there, or depending on the previous mock drills conducted, they can take an average. Let us say in one mock drill, the workers reached the assembly point within 5 minutes. And in another mock drill, they reached the assembly point in 4 minutes. In another, they reached in 3 minutes. In another, they reached in approximately 4 minutes. In another, 4.5 minutes. Let us say. These are the approximately 5 mock drills which are conducted in a particular organization. Now, they'll take an average. Average का मतलब क्या है? 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4.5. कितना हुआ? 9 plus 3, 12 plus 4, 16 plus 4, 20.5. Now 20.5 divided by how many times the mock drill was conducted? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divided by 5. How much is it? 4.5. Huh? 4.5 minutes. So this is the average time within which the workers should reach the nearest assembly point if a fire accident happens in that particular organization. So they'll calculate an average depending on the number of mock drills that were conducted and what time they came to the assembly point, and they will fix it based on their organizational requirements. Okay? Got it? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Right. So there is no particular standard. Now let us say you are just, if you go to European countries or Middle Eastern countries or into metropolitan cities, there are high-rise buildings, 30 floors, 35 floors, 40 floors. So if he jumps from the top floor also, it might take more than 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to reach to the ground and get killed. So there is no particular time frame. There is no standard time within which a worker has to return. Now if you say within 1 minute you need to reach to the ground, 40th floor pe banda hai. He's working on a 30th floor or a 25th floor, and you are telling them that you need to be onto the ground within 2 minutes as soon as the alarm raises. Is it possible practically?
No, sir.
So the only way is he should jump from the 25th floor. वैसे भी consequence same है. Right. So there is no standard time. So depending on the spread, how long it will take the workers, whether they are working in an isolated area, many factors should be considered before they set a particular time to reach to the nearest assembly point. Right?
Right, sir.
Yes.
So that is about our element 10. Yeah.
Sir, which between different flammable or combustible material?
What? Flammable liquids, combustible solids.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है ना? When there are solids, they call it as combustible generally. When it is liquid, you call it as flammable liquids, flammable gases, combustible solids.
Sir,
Okay.
that is depend on temperature, sir.
Yeah,
Temperature
there
of
are
flash
different
point.
flash points. Yes, depending on the flash points, you have flammable, extremely flammable, highly flammable. So when you read the instructions, the manufacturer's recommendations or material safety data sheets, you will know whether a particular fuel is flammable or extremely flammable or highly flammable depending on the instruction. So there are many materials which are classified as flammable, extremely flammable, highly flammable. So you just need to read the material safety data sheets. Okay.
Yes.
Sir, how can define this is a flammable, that is a combustible?
So that's what
On
there
flash
are
point.
flash point. There is a flash point
Yes.
based
Okay.
on which you'll decide whether it is flammable, highly flammable, or extremely flammable.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So how to calculate fire load in any organizations?
How to?
Calculate fire load.
In the sense, can you be a little bit more specific? Is
Fire load means, sir, if any organization keep flammable materials, combustible materials, so how to calculate fire load? I don't know deeply about this, but yeah.
you know, there are many factors that need to be considered. Means what is the kind of activity that is happening, whether it is a temporary work or it is a routine work, what quantity is stored or what quantity will be used, what are the existing control measures. So there are various factors that are considered when you are discussing about fire load, depending on the size of the organization, what operations does it do, what is the quantity, whether it is a what is a kind of fuel that is used. So there are various factors that need to be considered.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, any formulas for load calculation, fire load calculations?
No particular formula for fire load calculation.
Yes, sir.
So have you started the first four
Yes,
elements
sir.
once again or not?
Yes, sir.
What you started?
Element 1, element 2, sir.
Element 1
And 2.
and element 2, right? So yeah, anybody else who started or still?
Yes, sir.
Something.
Sir, LEL and UEL, sir, क्या है, sir?
Lower explosive limit hai, upper explosive limit hai,
upper
but that is
explosive
not required here. There are many things if you want to go into depth, but that is not required for the syllabus. So there are ATEX derivatives as well, such as atmospheric explosives, means the kind of equipment that need to be used in a what kind of environment where the explosives are present continuously in larger quantities,
Actually,
present
last
for only for
interview,
a temporary work. So there are many things, but that is not required for
but
this.
last interview, I given the interview, they had me. I also said, no.
But for IGC, it is not required. Yeah, I've shared the formula for calculating the fire load. Just look into it. And any questions
Okay.
from our element 1 to 4, please?
No, अभी तो 1, 2 में तो नहीं है, sir.
1, 2 में तो नहीं है. What about others? Have you started yet or still you are showing a
I'm
blind eye
going
to that?
to element 1.
Great, slow and steady, no issues.
Yes,
Still,
sir.
you should start.
Sir, on electric file, we use both the dry powder and CO2, na, sir.
Not to dry powder.
On electric fire.
On electrical fire up to 1000 volts or 1 kV, you can use DCP, dry chemical powder. Only up to 1000 volts, मतलब 1 kilovolt तक ही आप DCP use कर सकते हैं.
Otherwise, we use to CO2, na, sir.
Yes, you have to.
Sir, what
Because
is class of electrical fire?
E class E है, but generally we don't use it. We generally use A, B, C, D, F or K. Electrical files के लिए E है, but we generally ignore it. Okay, the first thing that you need to consider before you start using a fire extinguisher is, first you need to know what is the fuel that is burning. Without knowing what is the fuel, you cannot use a fire extinguisher. Now, let us say if the fuel is liquid and you are throwing water onto it, what will happen? It will lead to an explosion. Particularly for metals, you need to seek experts' advice. There was an accident. There was an accident in some California, or I'm not sure which place it is, where a fire started in a platinum manufacturing industry or platinum manufacturing unit. So fire started. So the employees called the fire department. The fire department came with fire engines. They started pouring water onto it. They started pouring water onto it. So what happened is, it was a metal, extreme hot metal, and when you pour water onto platinum, it will lead to a huge explosion. Immediately, the same thing happened. Huge explosion happened. So then they consulted some expertise or experts, and they told that if you pour water onto a hot platinum, it will lead to a big explosion. So then the experts suggested what has to be done. So they said you have to pour NaCl. What is NaCl? Sodium chloride, salt. Immediately, a plane was filled with sodium chloride, and it was completely, showered onto the fire, and the fire started slowly coming down. So particularly metals, you need to be very careful. Sodium, I know how you, I think how sodium reacts with water. If you throw sodium onto the water, it will start firing. So you don't know what is the fuel. You're pouring water onto a sodium. What happens? It will lead to a huge fire. So for metals, you need to take experts' advice on using what kind of extinguishing media onto it. Right? Nirban present, Mobil Ambedkar present, Harish Kumar present, Mahmood Rahman absent, Asif absent, Imran present today, Raj absent, Yahya present, Nadeem Hussain absent, Naveen absent, Rajan present. Shakir absent, right? Yeah. So any more questions from this as well as the first 4 elements?
Sir, I was going through the previous IGC1 question paper.
Don't discuss about the IGC1 question paper.
Okay.
Which year's paper?
I think it was 2019.
2019, it is not necessary now because that is the old pattern. Now you will get the new question paper itself, open book exam. So discussing about
In that they asked a question like, what is the formal consultation?
what is a
Formal consultation which we will be conducting in the organization to improve the safety environment, something like that.
Yeah, what kind of consultation arrangements will the organizations execute? When you want to consult with your employees, there can be both type, formal, informal. Formal means there is a particular specific time schedule where the workers will be consulted. Informal, anytime the employer can consult them. Then if there are very few number of workers, it is very easy to go on one-on-one consultation. Let us say an organization has 20 members. So consulting with one-on-one is easy. Why? Because 20, not a larger number, right? But let us suppose you are going for a bigger organization where there are hundreds of workers, or let's say 500 workers. Will it be an easy task for the employer to go on with one-on-one consultation? Will it be an easy task?
No, sir.
Consulting each and every worker. No. So in that case, what they do is they consult with the workers' representatives.
Like contractors.
Not contractors. Unions hote hain. Union leaders pata hai na?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what happens is for every 100 workers, they'll have a representative.
Right.
So same way, for every 100 workers or 50 workers, let us say, for every 100 or 50 workers, they'll have a representative. So instead of speaking to 500 workers, they will directly come into contact with the representative. So whatever the issues are, all the 100 workers will tell to the representative. They'll make a note of it, and the same things will be discussed with the employer. So one-on-one consultation or speaking to the union leaders or the worker representatives, these are the different consultation arrangements.
And sir, one more question. There was accidents happening in the organization. So as a safety officer, I have arranged the meeting on these issues. But the other safety officers which are who are my colleague, they are presented all the safety policies and said everything is going as per the safety policy.
Hmm.
So the question was based on the scenario. You explain where the health and system is failing, and
So where is the scenario?
the scenario is in a parking lot, like a organization has a parking lot where there are improper lighting facilities and the car parkings are not done in a proper manner, which
For this, only one or two things are not enough. You need to read the whole scenario.
okay, sir, I'll do that in next class if you
Yeah.
allow me. So, with
That
this,
will, that is not possible to discuss the whole
yes, sir.
scenario
Yes,
with
sir.
the classes. So we'll look for some other option for this.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
let
By
you know.
like doing this, I am brushing up the and revising all the 4 elements.
Yeah. So first understand the subject, because if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
understand the subject,
Yes, sir.
you might not be able to answer the question. First complete
Yes,
the first 4 elements.
yes, sir.
100% you should complete it. Then you start going through the scenario. Then only you will understand about the questions and answers.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And so you said just you started element 1, right?
Yes, sir.
But slow and study. Masla nahi hai. Take some
Hmm.
time, completely understand it. Then focus on questions,
Yes, sir.
scenarios.
Okay.
Then it will be helpful. Abhi kya hoga pata hai? You have not yet started completely. So subject mein understanding mein thoda problem hai.
Yes,
So
sir.
when you go to the question and you start understanding it, you lose your confidence.
Yes, sir.
No.
Exactly.
So you should only start attempting the questions when you are 100% confident. Yes, I can. Now I have completed my preparation and I can go for the exam. So do it in a order. Other
Yes, sir.
subject
Okay.
complete karke, when you go to scenario, when read question, unable to understand, you will lose your confidence. I don't want to
Okay.
that happen.
Yes,
First
sir.
complete all the 4 elements, then focus on the scenarios, focus on the
Yes.
question papers. Bata raha hu na? Definitely you will go through it.
Okay, sir.
You'll be able to find answers for all the questions. ये करना जरूरी है. पहले ये समझो, then focus on the previous question papers if you want. That will help you a lot.
Okay, sir.
And whenever you are preparing, already I told you in my first class, always think that you are an employer, think it is your company, and think it is you in that scenario or you in this particular 4 elements. Whenever you are reading about the employer's responsibilities, workers' responsibilities, think you are the owner. What are your responsibilities? Think
Yes,
you
sir.
are a worker. What are your responsibilities? Think you are a manager. What are your responsibilities? So always keep yourself in those persons' shoes. Then
Yes, sir.
definitely you will understand in a better way.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. हमेशा
sir.
ये करना. I did it like that.
Mhm.
It helped me a lot. So that is why I'm suggesting it to you as well. So do it.
Yes, sir.
Keep
Okay.
yourself in that position. If
Yes,
I
sir.
was a owner of an organization, how could I improve the safety culture? Let us say you are the head of the family.
Yes,
Your
sir.
family is also consisting of 4 or 5 members, right? Now
Yes,
let
sir.
us say in your family,
Mhm.
your kids are not studying, or your brothers or your sisters are not listening to your parents, let us suppose. So
Yes,
think
sir.
these are your employees. Now, how will you improve their culture? How will you improve their behavior? So same way, in your organization, all the employees are your family members.
Yes, sir.
They think health and safety is not important. Now think, what should I do to create awareness about importance of health and safety? So think in that point of view, definitely you'll be able to answer each and every question. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
That will be the best way. So adapt it, not simply by hearting it. Safety culture is nothing but the shared attitudes, values, beliefs, and groups of people. Blah 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 blah. Yes, Ani. Think
Yes, sir.
you are a person. You have to handle 100 employees. How you can motivate them? How you can improve their safety? How you can improve their attitude towards health and safety? Think about it. You keep yourself in that position. Definitely, you will come out of it.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है? वो शुरू करिए. Definitely फायदा होगा.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So that's it for today. Good night, everyone. Stay safe. We'll meet tomorrow with our last element, element 11. Okay.
Yes,
Good
sir.
night. Stay safe. Have some healthy food. We'll meet tomorrow at 7. Bye. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Bye.